program classes are wonderful. When I was at IMES, I taught 2 or 3 of them. It gives you a broad-based understanding of all these different topics. Frogs and toads. Anyway, that's one of the classes I used to teach at IMES. So welcome. This is the one university in Knoxville that's not caught up in March Madness. Are we? No, maybe we are. Because migration will start soon, so this is kind of an overview, and it's incredibly exciting what some birds may stop by your house and may not, but it'll give you a sense. Did everybody get one of my lists that we gave out last fall? Okay. On this list, there's 171 species of bird that have documented to Knox County. Now, if you live outside of Knox County, it's probably close to the same. If you live in Blount or Sevier County, you get to count the Smoky Mountains in there, and that adds a lot more birds. But anywhere in the valley, this is pretty close. And today we're going to cover the birds, the magical migratory birds, that if you're lucky, want to stop by the house, you go, oh my gosh, that's a scarlet tanager. And then it's gone. It's just the way, if you got wings, you can go anywhere you want to. If I get to come back, I'll come back as a vulture. You'll see. Vultures, one of the most interesting things about vultures is they don't get up to 10 o'clock. They sleep in, they wait for warm air thermals to start lifting them up. All of the birds are up at, they were up this morning and they do seem to know what time it was. But vultures wait till warm air thermals start to lift, and then that's when they launch themselves and just glide up. So yeah, someday I'll be up there. Let's get going here. These are 2 wonderful books about the topic of bird migration. Songbird Journeys by Miyoko Chu. She's actually employed by Cornell. And then the other one is Living on the Wind by Scott Wiedensaw. A lot of the things I use and talk about came from one of these books. I've read them. They're beautiful books. If you want to get into this magical topic of bird migration, some birds fly thousands and thousands of miles. Numbers. Peak nights in the spring, 30,000 birds per mile, and per mile over about 5 hours per mile, you're talking 150,000 birds could pass through here. They fly at night, and they fly for time. I know this is like, what? But they do, trust me. I do nonfiction, I can't make this up. Weight loss. A poor Kentucky warbler, weight loss. Think of this. A Kentucky warbler flies 600 miles over the Gulf of Mexico on an 18-hour non-stop flight, may lose 35% of its body weight, or a half an ounce per body weight. That's what I need to do. I need to lose 35% of my body weight. Maybe I should just fly over that Gulf of Mexico. This is what a Kentucky warbler looks like, and it's certainly possible. One morning you'll look out. Now most birds, I should add, most birds migrate. The reason why they migrate, they're insectivores. And so eat primarily insects, and we don't have a lot of insects in North America in the wintertime, so that's why they migrate. Some eat seeds, some eat berries, but they're all going to need water. After flying out, if they happen to be around your house, I just flew over the Gulf of Mexico, they may come down to your bird bath and take a good sip and oh my God. So that's where to keep an eye on. A lot of these will come splash around. Again, these factoids came from those 2 books. If a black-polled warbler were burning gasoline instead of body fat, it would be getting 720,000 miles per hour. That's what you need. That's what we all need. That's an estimated 3 million wing beats. I think well, again, birds have wings, they go where they want to, but man, personally, I would be a chickadee. Chickadees rarely fly a mile away from your house. It's like, what are those guys doing? So anyway, here's what a black-polled warbler looks like. It really does look kind of like a chickadee with that black cap. But again, they just pass through. You can see where they stay. northern South America, and then they're working their way all the way up to Canada. Oh, yeah.
How big are they in comparison to a chickadee?
Most warblers are bigger than chickadees, a little bit bigger than a titmouse as a comparison. They're smallish birds and they're fidgety. If migration should start November, and where are we at, March, and go into April. The peak is the end of April, but this will get you started to look. But if you're looking out, all of a sudden there's a bird bouncing around, that's more than likely warbler. They just don't stay put, don't stay put, don't stay put. They can't, they're fidgety. Just like I am. Anyway, we know some of this by Doppler radar. On a big migration night, they actually show up on Doppler radar. You go, my gosh, look at all those birds. So yes, they do this. So that's how the weather, people say, don't worry, it's not a storm, it's just 30,000 birds. Anyway, if you don't have already Merlin, it's an app. It's a free app from Cornell on your phone, you need it. It's a miracle. I used to have to try to teach bird songs, and some of these bird songs are so much alike, it's hard to teach, but with Merlin, you may hear something and just point it up and oh, okay, that's that black-polled warbler he's talking about. So Merlin is a free app for your phone, and any other bird question that you might have, or you want to see photographs, or you want to just hear a song, go to allaboutbirds.org, that's the Cornell website, and you can go there and type in any bird, and it not only has dozens of photos, but it also has song. You hit the button, it'll play the song for you. So that's two very valuable resources. This is a big chunky bird. This one will come down to eat. These guys love sunflower seeds. And the males pass through first. What's going on with this migration? It's all the guys first, They have to get back to territory to claim territory. So if their territory is Canada, each male bird has to get back to Canada and claim his spot. So when the females come in later, the females, oh, I like this spot, you did good. Are you kidding? I'm exhausted. I lost 35%. Yeah, you look good too. They have to chunk up a little bit before they do the fly. Anyway, this guy, the rose-breasted grosbeak, is related to cardinals, has a cardinal-like bill, and they will pass through. They actually nest in the Cumberlands and the Smokies, so we're just a tad bit south or west where they do nest. But they will, I can get them, and they stay for 2 or 3 days, if not longer, coming to, I took that photo. Is there anything wrong with it? Never let your bird feeder run out of sunflower seeds. These guys were going, hey dude, I flew across the Gulf of Mexico, get some food out here. So I took that photo, but there will be multiple grosbeaks. And for several days, you'll just see males as they fatten up. And then all of a sudden, you'll see a few females come in. The females are all brownish with a face pattern. But they will come in too, but they're the same size. Oh my gosh, that's those females. They're saying, yeah, we're waiting for the guys to go claim some territory up in Cumberland Mountains. So that's the grosbeaks. Vireos. Vireos are tough. Tough. That's why you need Merlin. Anyway, they have thicker bills. They're much less active. If you're watching a bird, you don't know if it's a warbler, bam, if it's just kind of and you finally see it, you're kind of a plain Jane looking bird guy. Anyway, the vireos are not very flashy and they're not as mobile. Here's a handsome one. This is the yellow-throated vireo. Notice the bill. It does have a very distinctive profile. It's got yellow on the front, but yellow and grayish, so it's not as flashy as some of the birds you're going to see shortly, but they also nest in the Cumberlands, and by the Cumberlands you drive up I-75, and when you get to Rocky Top, it's up on the hill. That's where the Cumberlands begin, up around the Cove Lake area. So they're getting very close to territory. when they get back here, they only a little bit further to go, a little bit further to go. So that's yellow-throated vireo. This one got complicated on us. I grew up learning this as a solitary vireo. And then all of a sudden they decided that the solitary vireo, which was found from the east all the way to the west, was actually 3 separate species that all looked alike. I'm glad I don't have to make these kind of decisions. So now our former solitary vireo, or you can still call it that, is the blue-headed vireo, because for obvious reasons. It's got more of a blue-gray head, but that's the blue-headed vireo, and you can see the range maps. They do nest, the little orange comes down, they do nest in the higher elevations of the Smokies. So that's a vireo. Oh, the thrushes, Technically, has anybody had hermit thrushes? Yeah, that's the thrush we get in the wintertime. And I have all of my feeders on the second floor deck, and thrushes are ground feeders. But this year I've got my hermit thrush coming to my bark butter log that lays at eye level, and he was there this morning. I said, way to go, but that's hermit thrush. They won't be around, and the reason why I emphasize is coming up there, they're generally well hidden. That's why they're called hermit thrush. They're pretty well hidden in the understory, but this guy, if it's the same one, if I can get a permit to tag, but I can't, or I won't. Anyway, he pops up on my suet log, and he was there this morning. I said, I want to talk about some of your thrushes. And then when he leaves, we get the wood thrush, which we'll talk about next month, that come and stays the summer with us. So here are thrushes that just pass through. I think I've got 3. That's Swenson's thrush, but remember a thrush, so a lot like a brown thrasher, which is not a thrush. Brown on the back, white chest spots. Very easy to identify. Well, the American robin is actually a thrush, but we goofed when we named it, but you can't change it. So that's my pet peeve. I'm gonna have that chiseled on my tombstone. A robin is a thrush, it's not a robin, but anyway. I used to teach first graders and what are you talking about? I've known that bird all my life, that's a robin. So, but a better name would have been red-breasted thrush, and they're the same size as thrush, and they're ground birds, come on. Anyway, Swenson's thrush, it's got the brown spot, yeah.
How big is it compared to a thrasher? Smaller?
Much smaller. Thrasher is the same. Thrasher is closely related to a mockingbird, same size.
Yeah.
These guys are closely related to robins, roughly the same size and profile. But Swenson's thrush got a little more buffy on the side and not quite as white, so that's Swenson's thrush. They do nest at Mount Rogers, I think, and that's just right at the south end of Virginia. So that's Swenson's thrush. Who'll be next? Gray cheek thrush, for an obvious reason. It's got gray cheeks and still the spot in front. So thrushes are fairly easy to identify compared to the vireos because they tend to be ground birds. They tend to be brown on the back, white chested with black spots. So that's a gray cheek thrush. And again, these are migratory. You may see one in your backyard, you may not. It's just wherever it is, when it runs out of gas, it needs to come down. Hopefully it'll land in the trees and find some insects to eat up there, caterpillars primarily, probably. And then who's, you know, you look back and there's certain birds that change your life. A vireo, how did that bird change your life, boy? When I first started learning birds, I was hiking in the Smokies. I'm from Gatlinburg. Hiking in the Smokies, I was coming down from, I was in the Cosby section coming down from the lookout tower, and all of a sudden I heard this most incredible song. Sounded like it was singing in a drain pipe. Had this hollow sound to it. Look it up. I'm like, what the world is that? I didn't have Merlin. We did have color TV back then. I don't know what a laptop was. Yeah, a laptop is when you eat your supper on your lap. Come on. Anyway, that's a veery. They do nest. It's a thrush that nests in the Smokies. Make a note. Listen. Look up the sound of a veery. It does sound like it's singing into a drain pipe. So that's veery. They nest in the Smokies and the Cumberlands. So they're just passing through here. Oh, here's an easy one, orioles. But the hard part about orioles, they're in the blackbird family. Gorgeous. Like grackles, meadowlarks, and red-winged blackbirds are all related. But the odd thing is a crow is not a blackbird. But it is a blackbird, but it's not in the blackbird family. It's in the corvid family. So anyway, orioles, this is one, if you lived a little further west, like Nashville area, you'd want to put out some fruit. But here, I have seen, in my entire life, one oriole, and it was in a tree at migration time. I walked out on the deck and out on the driveway and looked up, and there was an oriole. My gosh, but they don't really stay here. They migrate through here, but if you live further west, you may pick them up where they stay all summer. They do eat fruit, but not here. But we know what they look like. The Baltimore oriole, UT orange, and UT black on the back when they're going dark. So impossible not to identify, but they're just not here. You may see one during migration. You go, oh my gosh, that's one of those gorgeous orioles, but you won't see them long. They're moving on. Again, I only can recall, and at my age, it's hard to recall. Anyway, I only seen one, but it was above my driveway. It didn't hang around long. Give me a good look. So that's oriole. The tanagers. These. When you write about a red bird, these are tanagers. They are red. That's the most famous, the scarlet tanager. They do nest in the Smokies, not high, but kind of mid-elevation. If you hike a lot, you'll find them up there. The song is like a robin with a sore throat. That's what the books say. Choo-doo-doo, choo-doo-doo, choo-doo, but it does sound gravelly. So that's scarlet tanagers. I usually get them in my house in the very trial, whereas thrushes are on the ground, these guys are high, they're canopy birds. And I usually get one, I hear it first, and I go, oh my gosh, I've been to see this bright red spot with black wings, high in a tree, so they're high up in the canopy. And when they move on to the Smokies, that's where they're high in the canopy there too. So that's a scarlet tanager. Oh, seeing one of these will make your day. Bird watching makes your day. Turn that news off. Just go outside. I have friends that call me that want to, and they're full of anxiety. I say, turn that off, go outside. You'll see something outside that totally changes your day. May even be a frog. Anyway, I've still got frogs on my head. Okay, move on. Then we got the lovely summer tanager. This is a little bit like the oriole. It's more often seen a little further west up on the plateau. They're here, but not in big numbers. They do migrate through, but if you go up on the plateau and towards Nashville, you'll see them into the summertime. But here it is kind of passed through. See, the Tennessee Valley is this big trough that all of this 30,000 birds per hour on a peak night are just zipping up the Tennessee Valley. That's why they with the Smokies to the east and the plateau to the west, so they just fly through here. But summer tanagers, occasionally I'll get one of them will get around my house, and but mostly if you say, I gotta add a summer tanager to my life list, I will not be happy unless I do. Just drive up on the plateau, in around Cumberland State Park or one of those places, and that's where you're gonna see a summer tanager. And they're like the scarlet tanager, a little black on the wings, but solid red, just an absolutely gorgeous bird. And then here's one, I've been doing this a long time, and you know that. Every now and then a bird shows up, I go, what in the world? This showed up one day in the afternoon. It was later in the day, and I was on the screened-in porch, just kicked back, and I looked out, and here was this bird. What in the? It took me a while to figure. I had to go get old school, get out my Petersons, and try to figure out what this was. It was a juvenile summer tanager.
Oh.
That made my day. That's one 10-15 minute period of my life that is permanently up here. That's what happens when you get out in this world and you see something absolutely remarkable like this guy. And when you think you know your birds, you go, what in the world? I will never forget that, ever. Let's move on. Where we at time? Oh, we're doing good. Now we're gonna get to the crown jewels of the bird world, the warblers. Now they were named warbler, here again, I'm gonna have to correct our own ornithology. They were named warblers after after warblers in Old World in Europe that really do warbly, has a very beautiful sound. They're not. So some books call them New World warblers because they're not warblers. They should have been named something else. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Most of their songs are more like insects, twitchy, twitchy, or something like that, but not a warbly sweet song like they are in Europe. But they're incredibly gorgeous, and they will pop around your house, particularly to your bird bath if you're thirsty, and very, very highly active. Here is the pine warbler, and oddly, I've had a pine warbler all winter, coming and feeding him. So this one goes against what I'm saying. Typically, they would migrate through and you'd only maybe see them a day or two, but I've had one spend at least one, maybe more. So it may be lost, or it could be, the range maps are constantly changing. Birds, if their population is doing well, they'll expand their ranges. And so this could be that pine warblers that moved into the valley and are spending winters here. But they're gorgeously yellow, but I have them come to my bird bath, and they will also eat some of my suet log, my bark butter suet log, but they do nest in the Cumberlands and High Smokies, but I've had one most of the winter. I love looking at them. So that's the joy of, again, the joy of bird watching, and all of a sudden you go, wow, how is that? Look at this darling. I know, you see that, it makes your day. You see that. That's the black-throated blue warbler. They do pass through and through the valley, but they will nest higher in the Smokies. I was on a hike one day with a dear friend of mine, and we were coming down from Grotto Falls, and one of these hopped up on the trail, on the rhododendron right there on the trail. And she went, "What in the world?" And I said, "Well, Mom, that black-throated blue warbler." So if you see one of these, it makes you a dedicated bird watcher. Absolutely dedicated. So it's a black-throated blue, and not to be outdone, we also have a black-throated green warbler that will come by, visit you. You may see them in the trees, or you may hear a twitchy, twitchy sound in the trees. Get out your cell phone, hit it with Merlin. Oh my God, that's one of those black-throated green warblers. So very, very beautiful. They do nest in the Smokies and in the Cumberlands too. Absolutely one of my favorite birds. And this is one bird that's declining in numbers, sadly. We won't get into that. That's all. In fact, it's in back up. It's in my third book. There's a whole chapter about what's going on with it. But and I drew it for the cover. But that's cerulean warbler, cerulean blue. And again, the males rush through first. I remember walking one of the Discovery Trail at Imes one day, and one of these was in the trees bouncing around, but it was moving on, moving on, moving on. But they do nest in the Cumberlands, and I write about it in the book, but it is declining, but gorgeous, gorgeous cerulean blue. Again, another bird, if you see it, you remember it. It's absolutely wonderful. We covered that. Look at that. These, for some reason, really do love my bird bath. They come down and they'll peck around. I bet they'll eat suet from my log. This is American Redstart. It is a warbler. That's a male, and they show up first. The females are yellow where he's orange. And they do spend time in Cuba, where they're known as latrine birds. I know. That's not a nickname I want. They would say, "Can't you come up with something else?" Anyway, what do you find all around a latrine? Insects. So they're hopping all around in a latrine. Now, you may have a latrine too. All of my hillbilly cousins grew up, well, hillbilly family grew up with latrines. Anyway, that's a latrine bird in Cuba. That'll impress somebody. If you're at your house and a redstart comes up, yeah, it's one of those latrine birds. Anyway, that's American redstart. I do see them more often at eye level at my bird bath and bouncing around, and I'm hopeful they will take to the bark butter log, like some of the other birds have. Boy, whoever named that one knew what he's doing. It's a black and white warbler, yeah, okay. And these guys, their behavior is very much like a nuthatch. They hitch their way up a tree. You'll see this hitch, 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 and they are fairly common with an asterisk. They're not gonna hang around long. You'll look at it and go, oh my gosh, there's one of those things, a black and white warbler, and they're hitching their way up the tree. They probably feed just like nuthatches do on insects that are down in the crevices of the bark, and they do nest in the high Smokies and in the Cumberlands, but you can see where they spend their winters. I look at these range maps and I go, why can't I fly to Costa Rica for the winter? Maybe you think they have arthritis, all these birds fly because of arthritis? Oh, I envy to be able to fly. I don't like the winter, it's too cold and I'm too stiff. Move on. Oh, chestnut-sided warbler, very aptly named. I've seen a lot of these in proper habitat. I don't recall ever seeing one around the house, but they are. Wait a minute. I think I did see one at Kate's Cove at one point, hopping through the trees during the right time of year for migration. So that's a chestnut-sided warbler. It gets its name from that streak on its side. Most of the warblers are named with a descriptive name, which helps you kind of figure them out. Other than next one. This one is incredibly gorgeous. I do see them at my house briefly. It's called Blackburnian warbler. This may be one of the, if you've been reading the Audubons, this may be one of the birds that gets its name changed, because it was named to honor Anna Blackburn, who was a naturalist in the United Kingdom, but she was more of a plant person. But when this was first discovered, they wanted to name it after her or in honor of her, and she never saw one. She was never in this country. There is a movement now to change birds that are named for someone to give them a better descriptive name, like throat on fire warbler or something like that, to help us, because you know her name is Anna Blackburn. Anyway, there is a movement to make some of those changes, like Cooper's hawk. Change the name from Cooper's hawk to a more descriptive, mean as heck hawk. That would be a better name. But I love them. I love them. They thin out the small. They get starling, mostly starling. Anyway, move on. Look at this gorgeous one. These will stop by my house too, briefly, as you're passing through. They nest in the rhododendron thickets in the Smokies, and I typically see them in shrubs around the house, is bouncing around. It's a hooded warbler, aptly named, is gorgeous, bright yellow, black, and by this time of year, by the migration season, the males have molted into their breeding plumage, their handsome plumage, that the females will like. The birds, we don't pay a ton of attention to the migration south. It's not as rushed, and the guys are all kind of in winter plumage by that time, and it's more, it's not as intense of they're just kind of lackadaisically flying south. There's not this mad rush to claim territory. But they do migrate in. If I migrated again, I'd go in October and make it to Costa Rica by arthritis season. Just saying. Tennessee warbler. Look where it nests. It was named Tennessee warbler simply because the first person to shoot it and identify it was in Tennessee. So this poor bird was named after where it was killed. That's terrible. I don't want to be named that from wherever I'm killed. Anyway, I think I'm fine. Anyway, warbler, but you can see where they nest. They skedaddle across the northern tier. It's like, I gotta get out of here, someone's gonna shoot me, maybe after a state. So that's Tennessee warbler. You may see one, but they're kind of plain. They're not a lot of flash there. And here we have the Louisiana water thrush, also named after Louisiana, probably the first place one was killed. This one has, I have to look that history up. Anyway, this one does look like a thrush, but it's small. It is a warbler, but it's got a brown back and spots, so I understand, and it does nest along shorelines like a Tremont. It nests at Tremont, and they study them along the creek there at Tremont. So that's why water thrush. I'm not 100% sure. I think Audubon named it Louisiana. I'll have to look that up, but they do nest in the Smokies, just a little higher elevation than here. I know, another bird that will change you. It's like, oh my gosh, that's so gorgeous. These tend to be eye level when you see them. As they pass through, it's simply a yellow warbler with kind of cinnamon streaks on its tongue and breast. They pass through, they nest in the if you got a day off, hop up to either the Smokies or the Cumberlands, less traffic at the Cumberlands, and just drive up into the Cumberlands, and you'll find a lot of these birds, they're nesting. But here they're just zipping through till they get to the Cumberlands. Where we at? I think we're about at the end. Boy, we zip through these. Northern parula, very spotty in the Smokies and also in the Cumberlands. This is a bird I associate with smokemont. Again, I grew up in Gatlinburg, and they typically can be found around the ranger station and the visitor center at Smokemont. Not Smokemont, I grew up in Gatlinburg.
Oakmont?
Keep going. Sugarlands. Didn't have a mont in it at all. And it's called the Sugarlands because they used to do a lot of maple syrup there because they had sugar maples there. How could I possibly forget that? I grew up 7 miles from that place. Okay. And I do have a color TV. Okay. But it's flat. What's the matter with that? Color TVs used to be as big as your refrigerator. Okay, move on. And then there's another little bird, an oven bird. They do nest in the Smokies. I associate these with campgrounds. Every time I go camping in the Smokies, I would hear these in season nesting, but they only pass through here. Sadly, the closest one I've ever been to is walking down the sidewalk in downtown Knoxville. One of these poor guys had flown in one of those tall buildings and broke its neck and fallen out of the window. And I was able to pick it up and take it home and give it a decent burial. So that's an oven bird. They're called that because they nest on the ground, and their nest looks like a little Dutch oven with leaves. So that's where the name comes from in the Smokies, and very, very common in lower elevations. Maybe mid-range elevations, but they do build a little oven-shaped nest, like a little Dutch oven.
You hear a lot of them in Cades Cove as you're driving through the woods part.
I bet.
All summer.
Okay. I love again, another bird to look up. If you got my list, go home and just start looking some of these songs up, but they are confusing to learn them, but that's one way to get going. You'll learn your favorites. Oh my gosh, there's an oven bird. So that's oven birds, and that's all for today. I finished on time. Any questions?